How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massive Beer Reviews back with another review, but not a beer review. Fucking swag review. A little bit of product review. I don't do these. So this is going to be a little bit interesting in the form of TrailKeg's TrailKeg. Yeah, I don't do the product review thing. It's not my thing. I feel a little bit dirty when I do it, to be perfectly honest with you. But TrailKeg kind of reached out to me, and I saw what they were kind of pitching there, and I was like, I kind of want one of these for a couple different reasons. We'll dive into it in a second. But so they sent one over. I figured I'd do a little kind of side by side between a regular growler and this TrailKeg here. My plan is to kind of pour a glass worth of each of these and let it sit for a week. Why a week? Because that's what I deemed to be my scientific method. As you can see here, you have a little dongle here. This is a CO2 cartridge. This is one of those carbonated growlers. So for all intents and purposes, this should last longer than this one. I kind of want to put it to the test. Not uber scientific. You're talking about 64 ounces, 32 ounces. It is what it is. I'm going to do it anyway. So first things first, TrailKeg. I'm not a big growler guy. I'm not I like this. This is my favorite one. Plain Jane, nothing to it. And 32 ounces is what I typically drink. I know a lot of people out there in the 64 ounces. I usually don't get them for one specific reason, is that I won't drink that much beer, and it'll go bad for me. So 32 ounces works well for me, and I won't even more times than not drink 32 ounces in one night. I'll crack one on a Friday, recap it. That's why I hate growlers. One of the reasons I hate growlers, we'll get to even more of that in this kind of side-by-side, but I'll recap it, and then I'll drink some the next day, maybe even bleed into like a Sunday if I start on like a Friday night or something like that. But 64 ounces is usually going to last me a bit longer than that. The longer you go, the worse it's going to be, so I don't get 64 ounce growlers. And it kind of sucks, because sometimes I want a chuggable beer, and I wish I had it more in like a draft system. I don't have a kegerator at home, nor would I want a full keg of beer. I wanted something a little bit more kind of tight and tidy. But I can't really do that. And also, 64 ounce growlers are typically way cheaper. You know what I mean? Like, I think the beers I got filled here, it was like $8 for 32, and I think it was like $10 or $11 for 64. So you're talking about $2 or $3 more. You're getting twice the amount. That's where this kind of comes in. And that's why it kind of piqued my interest, and one of the reasons I just said, screw it, I'll do one of these. Is that with the forced carbonation and this, you have the, hypothetical last longer longevity thing going on. I mean, there's other uses for it. You put coffee and cocoa and all that stuff. We have a lot of parties here at the farm, so it'll definitely go to good use. And it has a couple different applications I'll never use it for. You could force carbonate beer. That actually would work pretty well if you had like a growler or a beer that was undercarbonated. Or you can actually re-ferment in here. You can ferment. You can pitch yeast if you're a home brewer in this and actually ferment in this. It has like, a blow-off valve, a tap system. All this can actually disconnect. I can pop all this stuff off. You can see right here. This is actually at 11 psi as far as carbonation goes. I can pop that off. It's good to go. There's nothing's going to happen to it. So it self-seals itself, and you can just pop it right back in there, and it has a little dial right here that you can actually tune and dial up the PSI on it. Like I said, I had 11 PSI. I haven't used it yet. This is my first going, so hopefully that's around the PSI I think it should be at. First pour might be a little bit dodgy, but we'll see what's what. So anyway, so I got it, and I said, what would be an interesting kind of a review to do this? I don't want to do a generic product review. That's not what I do. So I figured I'd get a growler, the exact same beer, again, different 32 ounce, 64 ounce, and we'll kind of pour them, drink them, see if there's any different fresh. I doubt there will be one, but we'll go back, we'll revisit these beers. I will kind of pour a decent amount, probably, hopefully about the same amount of each one. Might be a little bit more to this one if it doesn't pour correctly at the get. And revisit in a week and see what changes from there. So anyway, let's dive into it right now. Let's actually get some beer in the glass, because I want a beer. So these growlers, that is not filled all that well. It's kind of poopy. Actually, there's water in my glass. I'm going to pour that out first. I had these filled, oh God, what? Half an hour ago? Not even. So these are hyper fresh, so there's we're starting off good here. So let's see how this pours first off. I got this wide open. Got a little bit of leakage going on over here. which is, I guess it's not a good thing. It looks like it's coming from somewhere in there. It looks like it stopped. Maybe it was just kind of a first run thing. That's actually pouring way nicer than I thought it would. It's not pouring as vibrant as I'd like it to. But, oh yeah, that's actually leaking pretty good there. So I'll have to take a look at that, see if there's something I can do about that, because that is not good. Ooh, look at that. She's pouring out of there pretty good if I give her a twist. So let's keep her right there. Well, there you go. So first use, I'm sure, let's put it this way, not the company shill things, but I'm sure if that continues to be an issue, if I rotated over here, it seemed like it was more of an issue. Let's crank the pressure up, see if anything happens on this. No, it's definitely leaking still. So there's a little Allen. See if I push it to the side here, it just really kind of comes out there. So it just might be a bad seal on that portion of the shell. I'm sure they'll replace that if that's an issue. But anyway, let's get back to it. I mean, that looks more like draft beer. Sure, I poured that one first. But even with the time it takes to dissipate, you can actually tell there's CO2 involved in this one. So I actually expect to have a little bit nicer mouthfeel out of this one. So let's dive into this Growler version. It's nice. I've had this beer several times, so I know what I'm drinking. Nice, creamy, delicious. It's got a nice hop. It's a hazy. It's a 4.8% extra hopped kind of pale ale. It's got a really nice creamy mouthfeel. Nice hop presence, citrus abounds, grapefruit abounds, a nice soft melon vibe to it, and it's really tasty. I mean, the mouthfeel on this has always really done it for me, and it has a nice kind of hop impact without going over the top. So this tastes exactly what I thought this beer would taste like. Now let's go over the TrailKeg over here, see what we got. Pretty much the exact same thing. The only difference, and I would say this, for me, the hops seem a little bit more subdued over here. I don't know why that is. Literally, they're poured at the exact same time, from the exact same person, feeling the exact same way. I don't know if CO2 has something to do with that. It's feeding from the bottom. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Seems a little bit less on the hop presence over here. You know what? Let me break that down for you. Pretty sure I know why. This is colder. It's colder, so it's dumbing down that little bit of hot presence. This is like one of those double-walled, insulated kind of travel vessels, and it keeps stuff infinitely cold. This one over here, it's been out of my fridge for maybe a half an hour, so it's still cold, but it's not nearly as cold as this one. That's probably the difference. So I doubt there's a taste difference. This one's just markedly colder. But it comes off the same way. This might have a little bit more of a pillowy mouthfeel, slightly different, but that's pretty much it. But we kind of expected it to go that way, especially in the first going. Really, where this one's kind of cut its teeth here is how this lasts over a week. Now, I can actually disconnect this part too, so even though there's a little bit of a leak going on up top here, that's not going to be a problem. It's not going to leak air into it. It'll seal itself. This mechanism itself is airtight. So let's just give it a pour since I cranked up that PSI. Let's see if it's not coming out any crazier. I was just curious about that. See if it would actually come flying out of there. But you know, there's the ever so slightest leak. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes stuff fails. Yeah, see, if I really push it to the side, beer comes flying out of there. So there's definitely a problem with it. So actually, I'll go through the replacement process on this. If there's anything kind of amiss with that, I'll report on it. But looks like there's a little bit of an issue up here, but you know, I'm sure they'll replace it. Anyway, so yeah, the whole purpose of this is to kind of see how these last over time. And I hope it really does work, to be perfectly honest with you. For that, a couple different reasons. One, you know, growlers work for me, but I would like something that would be a little bit more kind of longevity to a growler beer for me. it would be something that would work absolutely fantastic for me, in that I'd be able to put in like a small little ABV beer in here and end up kind of having it over a week or two and actually have it be sustainable and not go bad over that time. That's like its biggest bonus for me. I have a couple friends that are home brewers. I might even offer it for them to see how they work with carbonation in this, whether it be forced carbonating or pitching carbonation in it. I will actually, if I end up doing that, I'll probably do a follow-up video. It won't go up at the same time as this one. We'll see how that works. And honestly, I'm cool with growlers, but I just want that bigger format. I hate growlers. I touched at that in the beginning. I can't stand them. I can't stand them because I can't reseal them. I like the reseal purpose of this, and plus the waste. Like, it's fucking there's so much waste with growlers. Like, we're trying to get away from that. You know, I carry a glass water bottle. I'm kind of one of those people. I subscribe to the George Carlin ideal of things when it comes to, okay, maybe the earth put us here because they want plastic. But at the same time, I don't want to be a douchebag. So I carry a glass water bottle. I refill that. I try to do all that. I like the way growlers work. And growlers just drive me insane. You crack it, you have to drink the whole thing. Plus, you're just going through can to can to can. As far as I know, some scientific, crazy environmentalists out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 99% sure that glass is way more recyclable than aluminum. It's, aluminum obviously is a bit more compact when it comes to, or a bit more sturdy and compact when it comes to transportation and crushability when you want to crush the cans and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, you're talking about less packaging, so there's less impact on the environment. But if you talk about like a can by itself, like, I just don't dig growlers. I hate them. I don't like them. I use them every now and then. You've seen me open them on beer reviews, but it's the grand scheme of things, I'm not a fan. And that's where this will kind of work. This is probably going to be my standby, because more times than not, I am not going to want 64 ounces of beer. But if I go to some place, whether it be like a Suarez Brewing or some place that makes tiny little crispy beers that I just want to chug the living shit out of, or if I'm going to have a party here at the farm, this is probably going to get utilized along with a bunch of other things. So we'll see how this one kind of cuts its teeth when it comes to time and all that fun stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, it's working so far. I thought I would pour a little bit more robust, let's put it that way, with the actual CO2 cartridge in there. Well, I'll tell you this right off the bat, 100% keeps things colder, because I got both these at the same time, and this is way colder than this one over here. So there you go. It's your first little run at the TrailKeg half gallon. They do gallon versions of this one, and I believe the top will actually connect to. It's like a universal top. The screw top it'll connect to like Yetis and all kinds of other containers that are pretty standard when it comes to these kind of travel vessels. When it comes to drinks and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of anything else if I missed anything specific. I mean, you can't see the inside, but you guys can go online and look at that kind of stuff. It has like a line that drops down the bottom. That way it feeds. It takes CO2 cartridges, food grade. It needed to be threaded ones. I guess I would say the only thing that is a bummer about that is that you pretty much need to use a CO2 cartridge to kind of carbonate or CO2 pressurize your vessel, and you also need to use one to clean it, because you will need to fill this full of hot water, repressurize, run it. But these all disconnect, and these can be washed pretty easily, but they still need to be connected, I think, to be cleaned thoroughly. Everything kind of comes apart, so you can give it a good cleaning if need be. Which I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, it's built really well, let's put it that way. This little kind of leakage problem aside, the build quality is pretty freaking awesome on the thing, so I'm kind of pumped. In general to have it, even if it just ends up being like a coffee dispenser or cocoa dispenser at my parties and stuff like that, and it doesn't get a lot of work done in the whole beer realm. It'll be fun to give this a whirl and put it through its paces. So the funny part is that I actually, with the brewery I went to, I brought this with me, and when I went to go get it filled, like 2 people actually came up to me and be like, "What is that?" You know what I mean? Because all this disconnects. So when you bring this to a brewery, you just have this kind of top part. I'll take it apart so you guys can see. You just have this top part here that's all you have. You know what I mean? And they're like, why are all those valves there? And I was like, I'm like, oh, a tap goes here, and CO2 goes here. And they're like, okay, that's cool. And the one guy actually went on the website right there. He's like, I think I'm going to get one of these things. So I told him straight up, I'm like, someone sent it to me to kind of talk about it and give my thoughts on it. I don't know if it works well or not, but it's a pretty cool piece of equipment. So there you go. How about that? So there you go. First little product review. I feel a little dirty, but not that dirty. Anyway, it's $1.50 for everything you see here. Half gallon is $1.50. I think it's $1.70 for the full gallon version, which actually I might think I'm a fan of more, because when it comes to the longevity thing, if the beer holds up over time, I might like that whole gallon, 128 ounces, to fill stuff and have that kind of last over time, to have an absolute tiny little mini kegerator thing going on. But that's kind of in line with a lot of your other pricings. There's like Mr. Keg or something, and U-Keg. The U-Keg looks, I don't like the U-Keg. I've seen people use it. I've never looked into it. I never kind of went out of my way to purchase one of these. But just that, it looks cool to some people, but for me, I just don't like the styling, and at the same time, the way it's kind of designed, a lot of those pieces don't get removed, so it's really bitch to clean. But this, to me, is one of the more kind of minimalistic, kind of industrial stylings when it comes to kind of the CO2 pressurized growlers, and that's kind of my speed, so it kind of worked out that way. So anyway, there you go. So after this, you'll probably see me cut to another week later video. Hopefully that one works out pretty well, and like I said, if I end up using this or giving this to some of my homebrew friends to kind of carb in it and stuff like that, I will do a follow-up video. We are going to open this with that one, so you're going to get me watching me drink spoiled beer a little bit, because I'm pretty sure it's not going to be spoiled, but it's not going to taste all that good. So you watch me drink a little bit of poopy beer, and hopefully this one holds up. So yeah, there you go. Kind of a review on the books. It's not over yet. We'll get there eventually. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this little product shilling review. Like I said, I don't really do these all that much. Look at that bug bite, man. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. God damn, something got me good there. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this little infomercial. I guess that's what you call it. Hopefully the week-long sitting of this beer works out pretty well. And hopefully you guys, looking into this stuff, if this is something you think you'd be into, it's been around for about a year and a half. I'm rambling now, but I'm going to keep going. Been about a year and a half. I think it started on Kickstarter. And, it's built really well. Like, I'm going to say this, these pieces are like industrial level. Like, this part is plastic right here, but as far as the tap system goes, the regulator system goes, it's really heavy duty. So it's not shittily made stuff. And I work for a manufacturer, so I can tell the difference. But yeah, it's well made stuff. So if this is something you guys are into, and I didn't think I'd ever be into this, but it makes more sense for me now, let me know down there. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have one. Let me know if you have one of those other pressurized growlers, whether it be U-Keg or one of those other ones. What do you think of them? How do they work? In the homebrewing world, if there's a homebrewer out there watching this, is this something that you kind of dig on? Is this something you utilize? Is this something you could utilize? We'll see what's what. There you go. Half review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little rambling session. Hopefully you enjoyed the second part, which is coming on shortly. And hopefully we'll see you then. Cheers. Yeah, we are back. We're back with the second round of our little kind of TrailKeg experiment here. So where we left you last is I drank a glass. I actually drank a little bit more than a glass. I wanted to get it about half full, at least this one, and do the same amount of fluid ounces out of this one. This one a little bit more open air, and see how oxygen treated the beer. So where I left you last, I basically did half pour of a 32-ounce growler. I did the same amount of volume out of this TrailKeg, which is 64 ounces. And my whole idea of what's going to happen is we'll see if it actually holds up. We'll see if it actually retains the beer, kind of keeps the beer better, fresher over time. That's kind of my main kind of interest when it comes to this. So let's see where we ended up. So like I said, we have the growler over here. So you don't have to have these attachments on in order to keep the TrailKeg pressurized. So I set this at like 12% PSI before I left. So we'll pop all this stuff back on. We'll see what's what. Put this sucker on first. Okay. Oh, and the tap system. That was a little thing that we talked about in the last portion of this. Was I had a leaking on that. After the review, oh shit, it's pushing 20, so it gained a little bit of pressure there. That's kind of odd. Yeah, I had it at 12. It's at, looks like 19 psi right now. So we're gonna release a little bit of pressure out of there. We'll give it a pour real quick, see how she goes at that pressure. But I had some leakage problems here on the actual tap handle, and I reached out to Mark at TrailKeg directly after a review and actually sent him a video snippet of it. And he's like, man, we'll send you a new one real quick, which is awesome. But then I did a follow-up email. He's like, you know what? He's like, do me a favor. He's like, check this coupling here. The whole system is meant to be kind of dismantled and cleaned. So this and this and this all come loose. And basically this part here was loose. So I've tightened this, and I'm 99% sure. On my second pour, this didn't leak at all. So I'm 99% sure that was the fix. So there was no problem with it. It just wasn't tightened. Now, is that in the directions? I don't know if it is. I didn't look through the manual completely, but I don't believe it is. I'm sure there's some kind of in-depth manual. If that's not the case, then that's probably, I wouldn't say a knock, but something they need to work on. Maybe a little bit of a in-depth kind of schematic-based kind of tear-down, build-up kind of thing when it comes to how to work the system. So here we go. Let's see what's what. Well, let's do the growler first. I'll hold this close. We'll see if we get a hiss on this. I'm sure we will. Oh, shit. Am I going to be able to open this? Wow. Oh, there we go. A little bit of a hiss. Doesn't smell too bad. Give this a pour. So, yeah, I mean, I poured that relatively aggressive, and I'm getting no head whatsoever. As you can see, no head can be found. It looks a little bit different as far as color goes. Color has changed, and carbonation is essentially gone. Doesn't smell that bad. You know, it still has a soft hops vibe going on, but there's a little bit of wet paper, a little bit of penny vibe, a little bit of that kind of metallic, kind of wet penny kind of thing going on too. So, okay, let's see how this goes. Again, like I said, got a little bit of high pressure here, so we'll see what's what. Let's see if let's just give it a pour. I think she's going to pour a little bit rough for me because of how high the PSI is. She's pouring about the same rate of aggressiveness. So you can see there, you get a nice head on it. Let's actually release some of this pressure. See if we can get her down. See if we can get her down towards where we want her to be. That's the other thing. This dial back here, you have a dial. You can dial up the pressure. I might have had this a little bit higher when I actually reconnected it, so it might have repressurized itself. So let's see where it. Oh yeah, that's pouring way better. It still doesn't pour like you'd expect it based off of like a tap. Like tap systems have this kind of aggressiveness. You can see there how it's pouring. It's not pouring like a full pour. I don't know if that's just how this functions. I assume it's part and parcel of that. But we'll see what's what. So I'll give that a pour. And then I think we're right about equal as far as the amount of fluid going on there. Actually, I poured a little bit more in that sucker, so let's just keep going on this. Yeah, I don't know if I can, I'll have to look to see if there's some way to kind of increase the flow rate on this. It might just be how this works. But, I mean, as far as the head goes, I mean, you know, you're looking more like a draft beer. So it does look like it's still retained carbonation. It looks like it's still retained bits and pieces of what it should be. This beer looks a little bit darker, but I think that's just because this head, with how big it is kind of sealing off light from getting in there. So I doubt it's the same color as this. It's probably a little bit lighter, but I think that just light is getting directly into this, so it looks a little bit lighter. So I mean that in of itself, sure, the CO2 could have been a forced carbonation thing to where it actually kept carbing the beer over time, but I mean, that looks way better than that. Let's put it that way. Let's give this one a sniffy poo. Like I said, the hops are still there, but it's not as expressive as I remember. Again, smaller beer we're talking about, a sub 5% kind of hazy pale. You do get a little wet carb, but a little bit wet penny, so there's a bit of oxidation going on in this one. So, let's see what this one has. I mean, the hops aren't over the top. They're probably a little bit bigger than this, but it could be a perception thing. Definitely missing that wet cardboard. definitely missing that wet pennies thing. I mean, it's really apparent over here that it just has that metallic, you know, you ever hold like a handful of change and you're real sweaty? That kind of oxidation over here, and that's really just not available over here, or not coming out. So this doesn't smell horrific, but this smells much cleaner and fresher. Let's dive into the old one. I don't really want to drink this, but for science, we do it all for science. Thin, watery. The hops are there, but it's very kind of muted. It tastes very similar to like a beer that's been left out. Like when I do my reviews, more often than not, what I'll do is I'll open 3 or 4 beers at a clip. You know, about 4 beers is average, and I'll review them all in succession, and then I'll take the vessel that came in. If it's a bottle, I'll recap it with like a cork or something like that, and I'll put the actual open container in my kind of beer fridge to keep it at temperature so it doesn't get too warm, and I'll drink through those beers over the course of the night if I want to. This tastes like one of those beers where I just didn't feel like drinking, and I left it sit in my beer fridge without dumping it out. If I went back to it very early in the morning, it still has a little bit of carbonation. It's cold, but it just lacks that kind of freshness and liveliness that you get from a fresher beer. So, let's dive into this sucker. Cheers. Yeah, I mean, the hops over here, not that they're explosive. Again, we're talking about a sub 5% beer here, but they're definitely more prominent over here. Fresher, greener, close to what I remember them being from the review from last week. Zero of that oxidation going on. The mouthfeel alone is just infinitely better. I mean, whether that carbonation helped force carb or is a matter of expunging a little bit of oxygen, what I did on purpose was I pressurized it to about 10-12% when I did the review. I put it back on, actually bumped it up to 15-16%. I drew some air out of it, try to purge any kind of leftover oxygen that was in there. I don't know if that actually is a thing, but I did it. And then I repressurized it, got it right around like 12-13%, popped both of these off, and called it a day. And that was it. I left it in the fridge. It's been a week to the day since I reviewed it, and it tastes as close to what I had last week. That's kind of a win for me. Honestly, like I said, I'm not a big product review guy, but the more I thought about this is something that would kind of work for me, in the sense that with its size at 64 ounces, actually probably might actually go all in on like a 128 ouncer, because that's where this would kind of be a sweet spot for me, is the longevity of it. To be able to put crusher beers in here and treat it as like a mini kegerator system. Because I really don't want to go in all in on the keg either. A lot of people have kegerator systems, and not that I'm not envious of those people, and I really dig that. But people have kegerators, and they're like, yeah, man, I got a sixtel of KBS, or I got a sixtel of 120, or even I got a sixtel of whatever. A sixtel of the same beer, unless I'm having friends over all the time, and this guy's a curmudgeon hermit, you know, that's a lot of beer to go through. For you're talking about 64 ounces, 128 ounces, or whatever vessel you end up wanting to put this top on, works a lot better for me, and I don't have to stress out. I don't have to freak out about it going sideways like the Growler does. I mean, this is not meant to last. Growlers are not meant to be kind of stored the way I did it. So we all knew what was going to happen on this end of things. It was more kind of a contrast, not knocking this vessel. This is one of the best inventions when it comes to beer. Fresh beer from your brewery, it works. You get to drink it, not douching on the old Growler. I love them, but as far as longevity goes, if you're someone like me that wants a beer over a longer period of time, it just kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? It makes sense. Now, price point, we're talking about $150 for the whole setup. I think you can order this whole top system individually. I actually do know. I'm not guessing. So you're obviously looking at a cheaper price point there. But this, as you see it here, is like 150 bucks. Actually, 165 bucks if you count the CO2 cartridges. You know, it's a bit of a cost. You know, I know not a lot of people would like to bite that bullet, but in the grand scheme of things, for keeping beer fresh for a decent period of time, I don't think it's that pricey of a product, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'm all about like well-made stuff, you know what I mean? I'd rather spend, and I've always been that way, but it's been something that's been kind of hammered home more with my wife and her family, because they're very similar. Rather pay a little bit more for something well-made than cheaper and have something break. The construction on this is great. That leak that was there is not there anymore. You can see right now, I can open this up and twist it and pull it. It doesn't exist. So it ended up being kind of not a blessing, but a nice little kind of added bonus for me, because it ended up being like, oh, you know, I looked at the instructions, but I didn't see that it was completely kind of, you could break the whole thing down completely. So it was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. I like the fact that you can break it all down and clean it completely, because we know beer can make shit funky. But yeah, I dig it, man. I'm glad I have it. You know what I mean? I'll definitely use it. It won't be like my go-to growlers. These, I stick a clean one of these in my car and it just kind of rolls around in the fucking trunk until I end up at a brewery half the time. But this would definitely be something when I would go to like a brewery that I really dig on, that makes low ABV crushers, and just get this filled and have this as a draft system throughout the week. If I want to have a beer with dinner, or just a light beer out by the view or something like that, it's going to work for me. So I'm trying to think if I missed anything else I wanted to talk about. Beer tastes great. A week later, tastes pretty much like I had it from the get. Completely breakdownable, strip downable, so you can actually clean the whole thing. That's kind of cool. Cartridges aren't that pricey. I thought they were going to be a little bit pricier. You're talking about 14 bucks for 6 of them. I was told you can get through 2 fills of this with 1 cartridge. That's cool. A lot of the other kind of CO2 based kind of pressurized growlers, I know that more times than not, these whatchamacallit, these you have to use an extra cartridge to clean them out. Since you can break every portion of this down, I don't think that's the case with this one. That'll be a time will tell kind of thing when it comes to this one. So you're going to go through 2 cartridges per fill. So you're talking about, you know, you're going to get 6 cartridges, 12 fills per 14 bucks. I don't think that's an overt cost. It's a threaded CO2 cartridge, so that's why the price is a little bit high. If it wasn't threaded, you can get them dirt cheap. But, you know, I kind of understand why they made it threaded. It just makes it more compact, and there's no kind of, you know, you don't have to have it as a self-contained system. And I think all the threaded ones that I know, I believe are food grade. You pretty much want to use food grade when it comes to this kind of stuff. If you use non-food grade CO2, get a little bit funky. So that's a thing. I'm positive. I don't know how it would work, but I'm positive you'd be able to kind of manufacture some kind of coupler to kind of attach this to like a bigger CO2 tank. That might be a little bit, as long as you regulate the pressure rate, I think it'd be fine. That's pretty cool. Other than that, like I said previously, all the other stuff, you can force carbonate in this. So it kind of works for homebrewers in that sense. You can pitch yeast and carbonate that way in this. It can hold up to the pressure. One of the cool things about it, I didn't realize how well it kept things cold. When I did the first portion of this, you'll remember that I was kind of having a difference in taste between the beers, and I believe it was because the growler was sitting out a little bit longer and it ended up being warmer, and this one kept much colder. It was over a decent period of time. But I like it. I think it's fun. I think it's a nice, well-made product. Yeah, I dig it. Whether you want to pick it up, that's up to you. All I can do is kind of give you the information, and I glean from it. And let's put it this way. It was sent to me for free. I'm going to use the shit out of it. That doesn't suck. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this first product review. Kind of feel a little dirty still. A little slimy, but at the same time, I got beer to drink. So it is what it is. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, find this informative. I'm sure I've missed something in this whole kind of spiel I do, because I shoot off the hip and there's no kind of notes or any kind of like teleprompter or anything. So if I've missed something, let me know. If there's questions you have about this, or just, you know, the whole system or these systems in general, because this isn't like a new thing. There's a bunch of other people that do these. It's just the combination of the stylization, the minimalisticness of this, in combination with the fact that you can break the whole thing down, it's easily cleanable, kind of makes me a little bit happier than those other ones. If you have any questions about it, shoot me an email message down below. Any of that stuff, I will reach out and let you know. That's pretty much it. Yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this little kind of rundown, put through the pieces, if you will, of the old TrailKeg here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some growlers, draft beer, all that stuff at home right now. Hopefully a couple of you guys pick, if you do pick these up, let's put it that way. I don't say hopefully you guys pick this up. You can pick it up if you want or not. But if you do, let me know how you make out. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.